All right. What's going on, y'all? Shawn of Back to Basics Fitness here. Hopefully, you guys are having a great day. Um, I realized I should have announced this webinar on my Facebook page, but I didn't. But I'm excited to talk about the topic today. It's actually something I recently talked about, I think even last week, but it's fat loss myths that are keeping you overweight. Fat loss myths that are keeping you overweight. Um, it's a lot of them, and I'm sure I'm not talking about all of them in this particular webinar. However, I'm going to do my best to talk about some of the main ones that are keeping people back from losing weight. Because let's think about this for a second before we get into this. If you really think about it, your body follows your mind. So, like for example, even me talking right now, me moving my hands and whatnot, I'm literally following mental commands that I'm giving myself to do these things. That said, you have to understand you follow after whatever it is that you believe. So if you believe a myth about what it takes to lose weight, or more specifically to lose fat, then you're going to follow after that. Okay. So it's not just like a little benign kind of deal. It's like a real, um, there's real negative consequence to believing the wrong thing about fat loss, because if it's wrong, then it's most likely keeping you overweight, or at least keeping you from keeping you having a hard time losing the weight. Okay. All right. So we're gonna go ahead and get into this. Give me a second here. To Okay, there we go. All right, so give me a second to share this screen here, and we're gonna get right into it. All right. So as we continue to make fat loss easy in 2026, we're going to talk about fat loss myths that are keeping you overweight. Like I said, we're going to get right into it. All right. So, myth number one: fat makes you fat. Now, this kind of comes from maybe the 80s or so, you know, 80s, 90s, where there was a lot of products being put out there, for like, reduced fat products, low fat products, no fat products. These all stemmed from a belief, at least what was perpetuated in society, that consuming fat makes you fat. Okay. Now it seems logical at first, like, okay, well, if it's fat, like for example, if you eat a piece of steak and it has some marbling, if you eat that fat, it comes in and immediately goes to your fat. So it seems kind of almost even intuitive in a sense, um, but it's not quite true. It's not true that that simply consuming fat makes you fat. Think about this. The body is a lot more complex than that. When we consume any food, our body will break it up into its constituent parts and use it for our various processes. You need proteins, carbs, fats, you need vitamins and minerals, you need all these things. So your body will take the food in, and even when you first begin to chew the food, like your saliva begins to break the food down, but it begins to separate it out into its smallest parts, and then it shuttles those through your bloodstream to all the different parts of your body that need whatever they need. Okay. And so even if you were to consume fat, which you need to eat fat, because especially for like cell membranes and um different kind of other processes that your body undergoes. When you consume fats, your body breaks them down, and any energy that the fat contains is utilized a certain way. It's excess energy that you consume that your body will actually take and use as fat. Now, typically, what happens as far as gaining fat is we tend to consume excess carbohydrates. Carbohydrates are our body's preferred fuel source. They're quickly used, and they're what happens is typically your body will uptake carbs. If they're not immediately used, they will be used in your muscles, or you have uptake into your liver and into your fat stores as well. Now, You can uptake fat into your fat. However, it's not typically going to happen that fat is going to make you overweight. That's typically the more readily available fuel source rather, which is carbohydrates. Okay. Another thing about fat that causes it that makes it where it doesn't necessarily make you fat is that fat actually makes you satiated, whereas carbohydrates don't tend to satiate you. In other words, fat tends to make you full quicker, whereas uh like carbs, like for example, say that you drink some juice or something like that. You can drink a lot of juice before you get full. Whereas if you eat like a piece of avocado, it's gonna actually make you feel fuller a lot quicker. Okay. So this is a myth that fat makes you fat. It's a myth, and if you believe it, it is undoubtedly contributing to you holding on unnecessarily to excess weight. All right. Number two, this is a myth that some people just can't lose weight by conventional methods. Okay. So this is what causes a lot of people to believe, well, you know, diet and exercise, of course, to put it simply, diet and exercise won't work for me. I'm an exception. So that stuff's just not going to work for me. It's just not true. So here's the deal. So there is a law in physics that says, and you've probably heard before that energy can't be created or destroyed. It has to be. It's the law of conservation of energy. It can't be created or destroyed, but it can be changed from one form to another. Okay. Um, And sometimes what we believe as far as like people not being able to lose weight, we believe that you can bring in energy, but somehow you can't change that energy. It's just simply not true. Now, what I will say is there are conditions that can make people maybe more prone than others to gaining weight. Stuff like hypothyroidism, Cushing syndrome, hormonal female hormonal issues like PCOS, polycystic ovarian syndrome. So some of these are issues that can make people predisposed, so to speak, to gaining weight easier than another individual. Okay, and even on that note, it does tend to be easier for ladies to gain weight than men, and that's just because of natural kind of hormonal differences. I mean, even if you consider the fact that ladies are childbearers, and your body actually wants to gain fat, especially whenever it comes to childbearing and stuff like that. So that's something to keep in mind. However, it's simply not true that some people just can't lose weight whenever they make the appropriate lifestyle changes, diet, exercise, and anything else. It's not true. And so as long as you believe that, then it ends up being true for you. But again, if fat is stored energy that your body intentionally stores for the purpose of using when it needs it a later time, then how could it be true that you just can't lose the weight? You just have to have the right conditions for your body to want to access that energy, because your body is going to be somewhat protective of excess energy that it's storing and holding on to, because it's just like a savings account, where if you have a savings account, you don't want to just always be using that money like that, right? You kind of want there to be some level of barrier. That's why we have like 401ks that have penalties if we withdraw before a certain age. It's the same thing with your fat storage. Your body is not just going to make it where it's that easily accessible, because it's stored for a rainy day, so to speak. You just have to meet those rainy day requirements. Um, and whoever you are, you have to find what that means for you. But typically, adjustments to diet, adjustments to your level of activity, and then even other things is going to allow you to lose weight. So this is a myth that some people just can't lose weight. It's just simply not true. All right. Myth number three. about fat loss is that you can target fat loss. This is otherwise known as spot reduction. Typically, we all want to lose fat around the midsection. Okay, we want to see our abs or the line down the middle. And so we're doing a lot of planks and crunches and sit-ups and knee lifts and all these very specific ab exercises. And I'm telling you, it's just simply not true that that's going to burn fat, at least in any appreciable manner in a particular area. You can't, if you have like a little jiggle in your arms here, your the back of your arms, you doing tricep extensions, you're gonna flex the muscle underneath. You're gonna work the muscle underneath, but you're not going to burn the fat there. Okay. Like I say, at least not in any sort of appreciable amount. The truth is, and the sooner that we can accept this, the sooner that we can move on. The truth is, when you lose fat, so fat, it's just like, again, having savings. You might have, a savings account at Bank of America, a savings account at Capital One Bank. You might have a savings account or a high yield savings somewhere and another high yield savings somewhere. You might have you have all these different kind of ways of saving your money spread around. That's the way that fat works. But typically, your body is going to pull fat from all of those areas. Now, the way it does that is kind of genetically determined. However, it's not going to be okay. Well, I want to lose weight from this particular area, so I'm just going to do exercises there. When you burn enough energy to the point where your body has to access fat, what happens is you're gonna pull from very all areas in some way, but it's hard to really determine how. But it's not going to be from the area that you're exercising. And the thing is, you kind of want that because otherwise your body is gonna like be kind of imbalanced. Okay. The only way you can target fat loss is by highly um what do they call those? Like methods that are gonna be highly invasive methods like liposuction or something like that, where literally somebody inserts a needle and they suck the fat out of a particular area. That's the only way fat loss can be targeted, but not in any sort of natural way. Okay, so it's not true that you can target fat loss. It is a myth. You have to burn more energy than you consume. You have to give your body a reason to access the fat, and then it's going to pull fat from all areas. And unfortunately, a lot of times the last area for the fat to come off does tend to be around the midsection. I'm a witness of that. When I got to about 10% body fat, 10-11% body fat, but I still was not able to see my abs the way I wanted to. I saw them more, but not really the way I wanted to. It was still kind of coming off of there, but I could see it a whole lot in my neck, a lot of weight loss in my neck and in my arms and stuff like that. So it's just the truth. But the sooner we can accept that we can't target fat loss, the sooner we can actually go ahead and start losing the way we want to. All right. Now let's go to myth number 4, which is a big one, that you can eat whatever you want and still lose weight. Now, I have to kind of explain this a bit by giving an example. So, it's a dude, a professor, I want to say, who was wanting to demonstrate that you could lose weight on any diet. And so he famously got on a Twinkie diet, where the only thing he consumed for a period of time was Twinkies. Okay. And he did successfully lose weight. Now, before you counter and say, well, Shawn, that actually counters what you're saying here, that you can eat whatever you want and that it's a myth that you can eat whatever you want and still lose weight. The reason why I'm saying that this is a myth is because my question is, how many Twinkies can one actually consume and still be under a certain um calorie count, if that makes sense. So if that's the only thing you're eating, you only have so many that you can eat. But if you still are eating and keeping yourself in like a caloric deficit, generally speaking, um, caloric deficit and you're not keeping your blood sugar high, so you're not eating Twinkies all day long, you are gonna lose weight. Okay, it's just the way it works. Like so for example, if you ate 3 Twinkies a day, you could lose weight that way. Now, the other thing that I also want to everyone to keep in mind is that you can eat whatever you want and lose weight if your calories are low enough, if you're not eating the stuff all the time, but then you also have to understand any sort of underlying consequence. Now, there's a health benefit to the fat loss that'll come from that, the weight loss that'll come from that. But we know intuitively that a Twinkie diet would not is not the healthiest diet for the human body. Matter of fact, I wonder what kind of nutrition you would get from that. And there would be long-term implications, long-term consequences from eating that type of diet because it is simply not healthy. So if you lose weight, I mean, that's cool, but it's not healthy. It's just not meant to sustain you. Okay. So that's why it's important to lose weight the healthy way, regardless of what you do. Any weight loss is not all weight loss is not healthy weight loss. You want it to be in line with what your body needs, the way your body is designed. Okay. So that's why if you hear these kind of things, eat whatever you want, still lose weight, I say turn away from that because you don't want that. You don't want that. You can eat some things to lose weight if your calorie count is low enough. However, you also have to understand you're not going to really be eating a lot and then necessarily. And then two, you have to understand that there are consequences that come with that because you can't sustain yourself off of just junk. Okay. All right. So let's keep on going here. Number 5, the myth that certain foods burn fat. This is a big one because it's the subject of many online articles. You know, um, blueberries burn fat, green tea burns fat, apple cider vinegar burns fat. Let me see what else. Different herbs and spices burn fat. Here's the deal. Certain foods, certain substances may have special metabolic effects. But the question that I have is in what quantity? Okay? So, like for example, with green tea, a lot of people are looking to green tea, especially the matcha green tea, to burn fat because it supposedly has some effect on metabolism and whatnot. But, and I think I made the calculation, and I think you have to have anywhere from 2 to 7 or 8 cups a day of green tea for there to be any appreciable effect to fat loss. But, like, how do you quantify that fat loss? Okay. So, like, I guarantee if you were to do an experiment where you drank 5 cups of green tea a day to see how you lose weight. If you maintain all of your same practices as far as like your diet, my question is how much weight would you lose? Would it be an appreciable amount? Okay, or would it just be something that's a level that's microscopic? It's the same thing. Like the way I see it is, it's similar to taking a vitamin and eating a fast food diet, like fast food 3 times a day, but then you take a multivitamin. Will there be a benefit? Possibly, because of the fact that your diet is devoid of nutrition. However, you're not going to really get a whole lot of benefit. You're trying to use a vitamin or vitamin mineral supplement as insurance, but it's better to use a vitamin whenever your diet is overall healthy because then in that case you're kind of getting a little bit more just like icing on the top to kind of fill in any sort of gaps on certain specific things rather than a vitamin supposedly carrying all of the nutrition in your body gets. Because the thing with our foods is even with a multivitamin, multi-mineral, that's still not going to have the breadth of nutritional value of like a vegetable or even a meat or something like that because there are phytonutrients, things that nutrients that haven't even really been named yet specifically that are in foods. Our bodies just automatically know what to do when you eat something natural because we all come from the same stuff. So our bodies know what to do with that. But if it's like some very, very specific nutrients, then your body, you may get those, but like there's other things that you're not getting. So anyhow, I digress, but I say all that to say it's a myth that certain foods burn fat because we tend to rely on those and then our diets are all the same. If you want to enjoy any sort of health benefit, I mean, fat burning benefit from, say, green tea, then the best chance you have with that is by, you know, having a healthy diet in conjunction. Okay. So otherwise, you're fooling yourself, and you're not really going to see any appreciable benefit from just eating blueberries. You make sure you eat handfuls of blueberries um, to lose weight. It's not going to happen. Okay. Now, I say all that to say, fat loss will happen by a diet that is cleaner, and what I mean by cleaner is a diet that is largely consisting of you know non-starchy vegetables, fruits, lean meats. Then of course you can kind of put in some carbohydrates and stuff there, but you of course you have to make sure those aren't processed largely. And then even if they're not processed, you may want to not necessarily go too high with those. But anyway, a diet that way will help you to lose weight. An appropriate amount of movement or exercise, with some cardio, you know, preferably high intensity in short bursts with strength training that's maintaining and building muscle. It's going to help you to lose fat. Then other lifestyle factors, such as the time of day that you eat, like not eating late or consistently getting enough sleep. Um, these types of things are going to help, or even also kind of going back on movement, like being a naturally active person, not just having exercise sessions, being that person. These are the type of deals that will help you to lose fat and lose it the healthy way, lose it in a way that is sustainable and permanent. All right. So 30-day challenge. I have a 30-day challenge where I give you everything you need to to jumpstart your fat loss, to lose the fat. I give you the eating strategies. I give you beginner level video workouts. These are calisthenics based workouts that you can do anywhere, home, gym, park, whatever. I give you those. I give you a cardio schedule. So basically, it's a very basic schedule of cardio, not too much. The main goal is to get you consistently moving. But I give you all of these things for 30 days to jumpstart your fat loss so you don't have any guesswork. Okay. And so right now, if you were to get that using the QR code, and I put the link also in the chat, as well as in the description, it's only $99. $99 investment, 30 days. I take out all the guesswork for you. Sorry, I'm uh, getting this link here ready. But I take out all the guesswork for you. Will you be willing to lock in 30 days? 30 days following the plan that I give you, that you don't have to try to figure it out yourself. You can do it at home, gym, whatever. But will you lock in? Okay. So you can use the link in the chat or in the description after I actually finish this live to join the challenge, or you can use the QR code as well. All right. So now I just leave the door open for a couple of questions before I get off of here. Any questions related to fat loss myths, uh, the 30-day jumpstart your fat loss challenge? Any of those questions, fair game. Oh, excuse me. Or even if it's a question regarding anything else, health and fitness. Okay. All right. So I'm just gonna let that be it. I invite you to join the challenge and even leave any other questions that you have in the description. I mean, in the comment section, following this live. But anyway, again, if we want to be, okay, there we go. If we want to be, sorry, I'm posting that so that people know what that is. If you want to lose fat and you want to be successful in 2026, you got to understand if you believe certain things about fat loss that simply aren't true, then you're going to be inhibited. It's going to make it very hard, if not impossible, for you to lose the fat if the way that you're thinking about it is not right. Because as I said earlier, the body follows the mind. If you believe a certain way, then that's going to influence the actions that you take. So if you believe, like I said, that you can spot reduce, then you're going to be spinning your wheels because you're going to be doing stuff and then you're going to get discouraged that it's not working. But it would have never worked in the first place. Okay. So if you're just getting here and you haven't seen what I talked about before, make sure you go all the way to the beginning once I get this posted up, go through the myths. And then if you need help with fat loss, I have a link to my fat loss challenge in the chat and it will be in the description as well. Join me. I figured everything out for you. All you have to do is follow it. Y'all, thank you for tuning in, and I hope that you have a great day.